All right, Tom, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you guys for coming out, for showing up again. I just wanted to thank Scott for putting this together. You know, like I've been rattling on about your board and what we've been going through for the past 6 months, 7 months, really working tirelessly, meeting monthly, but within those meetings are different committees and subcommittees and, you know, putting things together. And it's really become almost like a weekly thing. So Scott's the one who lined this up with the various guests. I see a couple familiar faces, Nolan, Frank, Amanda from football. You've always been good to us. So it's really cool to see you guys. And I want to thank you guys for taking your time out. I know you guys got a lot better things to do on a Tuesday evening, but we really appreciate you guys coming out. And before I get into just a couple of housekeeping things, everyone, we are going to get credit for this meeting. This is going to go towards our instructional, or towards our 18 hours. So please make sure you stay on. We're able to monitor when you log in and when you log out. So make sure you stick through the whole thing. I think you'll enjoy it. I don't think anybody will be leaving early, but we are going to get credit for this. So please stick around for the full meeting's entirety. We're also trying to move things to the website too. Andy just let me know that he just posted last month's board meeting minutes up there. For those of you who are interested in what's going on with the board and behind the scenes, that stuff's going to be up on the website now. The other things, like Andy just mentioned, this is being videotaped, as have the past speakers here. So with the ones with Brian Walsh and Malachi Moore, those are up on the website if anybody would like to go ahead and peruse those. And this as well will be up there. So I think that's a great little tool. I think that's about it. So again, I'll say thank you very much to the panel for coming out. I'll try and be respectful of your time and let us get started.
And the only thing that I would add before I turn it over to Scott for introductions and kick us off is that I've gotten some emails about when we'll be meeting and the classroom schedules. We're meeting on Thursday to work that out. And so we will figure that out and get back to you here shortly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
All right, thanks, folks. We're going to really kind of get right into this. You know, some very brief introductions. Amanda Kelson's the athletic director at Brentwood School. Many years ago when I was doing high school softball, she was the head coach there. I know that, Amanda, for a couple of years, you were on the Federation Rules Committee, I believe. Been around high school athletics in a variety of on-field and executive capacity. Nolan, current head coach at Windward School. It's very odd looking at you two on this monitor side by side and not, not in the combative in league little rivalry you have going. But Nolan's been around baseball an awful long time. And happy to have him aboard. We got Frank Cruz. He's been around the game as a head coach, athletic director, connected to Division I level, all the way, all the way up. So a good voice there. And I know I saw, okay, Lauren Kamiyama just signed on. We got to unmute her, folks. Lauren's the athletic director at North High. She also, I believe, you're still the head basketball coach on the girls' side? I'm not sure, Lauren.
Yes, I am.
If any of you that work basketball, you either have, do, or will work for her father at some point in your basketball officiating career. And you'll probably, if you're in the South Bay, you'll run through North High and bump into her. I saw Evan Fujinaga, currently the AD at Santa Monica High School, longtime head coach, and was the AD up on the hill at PV for quite some time. So we've got a whole collection of folks that add some valuable perspective to what we do. Folks, if you saw the email, this really isn't going to be interactive per se with us, as we have been on some of the other events where we may be engaging with the presenter. This is more of a panel discussion for us to listen to what they have to say. And much like I communicated out, there'll be things that fit for you that you're going to hear in a game that they may not fit in the micro, but in the macro, there are things that we probably need to hear, process, and and find ways to apply. But the most important piece of what we're going to get out of tonight is there are always other sides and other perspectives to the high school athletics experience and what we're trying to accomplish. And the goal is, as we work our way through our high school careers, that we at least have a base understanding of what the other side's trying to accomplish and how they're viewing things. So with that, I don't think we have the time for the panelists to really do much of an introduction. So if I miss something, please, my apologies, but we'll get right to it. So I want to start with the athletic directors first. Maybe Amanda, if you can weigh in. One of the key deliverables we've been working on in training is maintaining and improving professionalism. And from an athletic director perspective, what is it that you expect from officials? And while we may be talking to baseball officials primarily here, baseball, softball, probably just officials in general, because I think it transcends any individual sport. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me. Just a quick shout out to Harry Hampton. Tori's one of our 9th graders now, so it's great to have him on campus. I think that it's such an easy question, and I think that everyone who's on this Zoom probably even knows what the answer is. We look to you all as athletic directors as if you were members of our own team. Right. So it's the expectation that you're on time and that you're dressed and you're ready to go, just as if you were on our own rosters. And I feel like that is the beauty of sports, is that the level of expectation is kind of transcends all the way through, no matter if you're in 6th grade or whether you're the umpire. If everyone is prepared and ready to participate at whatever their job and their responsibilities are, then you're already miles ahead of the game. I think that so the way that looks at a diamond or on a high school campus is being on time, being dressed, introducing yourselves to the coaches ahead of time. And ahead of time is not 5 minutes before the game is supposed to start, but that you've arrived on campus. I think the trickiest thing for athletic directors, especially if you have facilities on your campus, is that you're not just hosting one game at a time. You're usually hosting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different games at a time at different levels. So, you kind of want to make sure that all the pieces are there so you can get it going. So identifying yourselves early to the right people is always really key. And I think that's something that I love to see is when I see officials interacting with the students. I think that it's gotten to be a little bit standoffish over the last couple of years, where there just seems to be like this distance between, and there isn't kind of like that fun lovingness anymore. And that would be something that I would love to see kind of grow back a little bit. Maybe when we get back out there and start playing again, it's just the officials kind of interacting with the students, and asking them questions and asking them about their day, and maybe that'll help bond the relationships with officials and players, and remind everyone that everybody's human, and we're all out there to have a good time, and we have a common goal of just having a good time and being safe and playing ball.
And maybe I'll turn to Frank. What are the common traits that you see officials at various levels that seem to transcend the level itself, but are just traits of the highest levels of professionalism across officials at every level?
Yeah, I think it's kind of an umbrella of what Amanda said, and it's and I just go into game management, where the officials come in and they're managing the game in terms of checking the equipment prior to the game. As Amanda said, making sure that the coaches know who you are, and that you're there with some passion and energy. And like she said, to me, it's really important in terms of how an official presents himself, whether it be at the high school level or at the D1 level, in terms of their shoes shined, their belts, their shirts tucked in, and they're ready to go because they have passion for the sport and are excited about being there. I know sometimes it's difficult at the high school level for umpires to get there really early because they're coming from their day job. But it's much appreciated when they have the passion and they're letting you know, hey, we're ready to go. Let's have a good one and we're in charge. And from high school to international baseball that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, you just see the passion in the umpires and the guys that are really on top of it and will interact and honestly, who are really good listeners as well. That's really important to be a good listener as an umpire because I think you gain the respect from the coaches and the players if you are that good listener.
And I would ask Lauren on the other side of the coin, as an athletic director in particular, what are the things that that you would classify in the category of professionalism do you find frustrating in what you see from some of the officials that you deal with?
To be honest, a lot of it is how, like, piggybacking off of Frank and Amanda, is just how they present themselves. I mean, sometimes you'll have officials walk up and like they're tired, they don't really want to be there. And I think when coaches and players see that perspective, I think the kids and the coaches get cheated a little bit, just because of like the attitude sometimes. And we all have bad days, right? But at the same time, when you see an official walk up strutting like they don't really want to be there for that game, to umpire, I think it has an effect on the people who are watching. Because, I mean, regardless if umpires and officials notice, but kids and coaches do see them walk up at sometimes. I get the 3 o'clock games are hard to get there earlier, to be there on time a lot of times, but just how they present themselves is just really important for the kids and the coaches. And then also kind of just being able to explain themselves and have that communication between the coaches and the players. I know for me, I encourage our coaches to treat officials respectfully, and not everybody's perfect. And so if that call doesn't go their way, it's okay to ask for an explanation, but as long as they do it politely and respectfully, just so everybody kind of gets the perspective of whatever the official called.
And I'll throw out there to Evan, I mean, certainly, you've commanded a lot of respect out of the South Bay officials for how you handled, yourself as a coach and as an athletic director. What would you add to this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, like Lauren said, I think there's also a responsibility for, not only the head coaches and how they police or have expectations on their players, as far as a way to engage with the officials. I think when I was coaching, it was about, you're not going to engage with anybody except for the people in our uniform, unless obviously an official speaks to you. So there wasn't about, things about questioning calls and whatnot. You would accept things for where they are, and if they need more clarification or there was some sort of discussion, leave that up to the coaches. I think as athletic directors, it's also about, as Lauren says, everyone has their bad days, and trying to make the officials also welcome. So the same thing that Amanda and Frank had mentioned, hopefully we can exude those things so that the official feels comfortable as well. And obviously when we're talking about varsity and lower levels, a lot of times they're two different things. I think with this panel, I think it sounds like you're trying to get at the same professionalism. And what I can say is, in my experience in baseball over the years, on the varsity level, we had none of those issues about officials showing up late as far as baseball is concerned. I think, like Frank said, guys around here were shining their shoes, were getting into their pregame rituals with their partners, and I think that was reflected on what we got on the field.
Move to Nolan, kind of following along the same lines. We have a lot of conversations with officials about how they dress and how they present themselves from the parking lot to the field to the pregame. What kind of assessment is going through your head when as you you see that official before the first pitch is thrown.
I think it says a lot when you see an official whose shoes are shine, their equipment's nice, and their uniform's tucked in. You can kind of tell who's coming into play, and these guys all have their own personality about them. I know when Tom's coming, it's going to be a very professional game, and I've had some games where I've seen the same umpire come in, and I've kind of just thrown my head back and go, oh gosh, not this guy again. The jersey's undone. It's a little bit weathered. It really says a lot sometimes when these gentlemen come in or women come in and their uniforms are tip top. You go, okay, that's a little bit of respect on our part as coaches. And, first off, I'm honored to be on a panel with Frank Cruz. I just wanted to say that. But, the biggest thing that I've heard all of these athletic directors talk about is that we're building relationships. And I think that a lot of times that we're talking to the umpires as human beings. So it's really nice to see when they're presented great and yeah.
So I know Bill Dillon had committed. I don't see him by name. If you're out there and maybe you're on mute, certainly feel free to let me know if you're here so I can include you in the conversation. Again, Nolan, and maybe we'll look, Evan and Frank, everybody could probably weigh in on this question. I think it's one of my more important ones to get out of you guys is credibility of an official. Does an official build or lose credibility over time? Nolan?
I think sometimes they do. I think the more that the conversation can happen, and anytime there's a call or anything's discussed, that there's a conversation. I can think particularly with Tom. Last year, we had an issue with a number, a jersey number, and I try not to ever lose my cool. But Tom has built a lot of credibility over the years, and because he's able to have a discussion with me. And anytime that the umpire can't have a discussion with a coach or they think maybe the ego is involved, you can lose that credibility because you're not able to judge off of maybe a human error, but you can build that relationship again, and you can have that conversation and should be able to build. So yeah, I think you can build some credibility. You can lose it as well.
And Amanda, I'd probably move to you next. You coached for a long time. What are credibility builders for you as a coach?
Yeah, I think it's going off of what Nolan's saying, and yes, we're two GCL folks who are going to agree, but it's how you work together over time, and that is time. It can only improve those relationships, but if the opportunities aren't taken upon by both parties to actually work on that relationship, then there probably isn't going to be a lot of credibility felt by either party. I don't think anyone wants to be judged by any single transgression in their lives about anything. But that means that each person needs to be big enough to have the conversation and address it and say, hey, listen, you know what? I don't think I handled myself well in that moment. And, next time I'm going to do better. And then the next time do better. Like, you just have to do it that way. It's what we expect of our coaches. It's what we expect of our players. And there's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't be expecting that of umpires when they're the ones who are holding everyone fast to the rules. So I think that absolutely credibility can be built over time.
So I'd ask, Evan, I mean, you probably saw a relatively small, small base of umpires, particularly, when you were head coaching, considering the quality of the program. Did you have officials that caused you concern based on prior experience as soon as you saw them come on the field?
Not really. I mean, I think it's hard enough to take care of your own group to then worry about these other, external factors if you let them, and so No, I don't really. I mean, we never dwelled on it, and certainly I didn't dwell on it. Like I said, there's enough to worry about as the head coach, with your own group and the group across the field to try to concern yourself also about, officiating or who might be officiating. I never got caught up in okay, who's got our game, today. And I would say too that it works both ways. And I see George is here, and as a young first year head coach, I remember, and he gives me crap every time I see him, and we have a good laugh about it, about a certain situation, when I was going out to argue and discuss. And I think that it goes to the point that we can learn from the umpires and officiating as well, especially on the varsity level, about the mechanics of the calls and the mechanics and the responsibilities of the coach in a discussion and arguing. And, I believe, and George could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but, I was arguing, I think a front end of a double play call, and I immediately ran out to the base umpire. And really, it was something that, that was the responsibility and mechanics of the home plate umpire. And I think, if we can put ourselves in the shoes of the official as well, we can come with that other perspective, because we're trying to get the call right. And we're trying to, let the best team win. And so I think there's that part as well.
Lauren, as a coach, I mean, baseball is probably in many respects substantially different. But in terms of officiating, some of the basic tenets are there. How would an official, generally speaking, lose credibility with you as a coach?
For me as a coach, I think over time, obviously there's slight rule changes every year. So just making sure that they're up to date with the rule changes and things like that. But then also, as Nolan and Amanda mentioned, credibility is built over time. I mentioned before about bad days. There could be a call that maybe the coach and the official didn't agree with one game, and we get that same official another game. I think it's just important that we don't hold grudges about what happened the last game. Every game is a new game. And so I think that's just really important as you try to build relationships over time, is whatever happened, like for me as a coach, whatever happened last game, I probably won't even remember what we didn't agree on. And so as coaches, a lot of times we don't really remember. But I think sometimes it goes both ways. Some coaches do and some coaches don't. And then some officials remember and some officials don't. And so I think both parties just understanding that, like, the past game is in the past and this is a new game, and to look at it from the lens of whatever happened in the past is in the past, and we have to treat each game as a new game.
So Frank, ejections, I don't know how many you've dealt with over the years, but do you generally find at the prep level, the high school level, that we are ejecting or managing situations or escalating situations appropriately?
I think so, 100%. I feel like there's very few ejections that are written up, especially since Evan Fujinaga stopped coaching. But I really do think the officials do a great job of being able to communicate with the coaches and not eject people as much. I think if there is a decorum that the officials are taking care of, and they make an ejection for maybe an inappropriate remark made or just acting like maybe you're in professional baseball and way out of line, kicking dirt, kicking the plate, or whatever it may be, I think that's warranted. But overall, I think I honestly believe that the officials do a great job, and they know the rules and they know the etiquette better than most coaches, to be honest with you. As we come up as young coaches, we're just eager and ready to try to teach and win and kind of maybe not know as many of the rules or the etiquette as we should. And that's why I think these umpires are in just an incredible teaching environment where they could help bring along coaches. Not their job, but they sure can do it. And when they do that, that's where I think they gain the respect that you're speaking to earlier with Lauren. And so, no, I don't think there's an overabundance of ejections. I think it's probably minimal, and you would know better than I, Scott. But I think that it's not really a problem. I don't envy the umpires this year after watching the playoffs and the professional baseball, where these kids going to think they could jump around after every hit or strikeout that they have. I don't envy these umpires, but I'm sure they'll do a great job.
Amanda, how's it look from your view?
I mean, I really don't know that I have anything different to add. Just in trying to keep it brief for all the questions that you do have and that you want to get to. I think that everyone else has really kind of hit the nail on the head here.
Appreciate it. Nolan, situation game management. You know, we have conversations with officials that not every on-field discussion is created equal. You know, there's different motivations a coach may have that's highly situational. What are the different reasons and expected or hoped for outcomes that would bring you out onto the field to have a conversation or even a potential confrontation with an umpire?
Well, anytime I'm going out there, I'm really just trying to have a conversation and maybe try to spark a little question in the umpire. So if I say, hey, can we ask for a little bit of help? And if it was a really, really close call, I want to see if that guy can go and ask for help and see if the other umpire saw something different. I never want to get myself to a confrontation point of view. So I want to get the other umpires thinking and that umpire think and say, hey, well, maybe that wasn't, that call that I should have made. So I'm, if I'm going out there and having a confrontation, I kind of go off of the thought process that you get more bees with honey. And so I would like to keep it that way and be easy. So I don't think I'd ever go out there for a confrontation. I try not to, but I think it has happened once or twice. So yeah, I want to get some umpires thinking and see if we can change a call.
Evan, what would bring you out? What are the different motivations that you would bring yourself out for as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nolan is correct. Obviously, personally, that's where I had to change my tact. I mean, I played for Frank, so, I learned from him initially. So, but, I had to have an adjustment point. But, yeah, I don't think, you argue every call. I think that's part of athletics and teaching your guys, that you're going to have to work through some stuff, and not every call is going to go your way. So I do think it's about really being strategic, kind of as Nolan alluded to, and some of those bang plays, it's flip of a coin. So, you got to pick, which one you're going to go out and question, ask for help depending on the situation, and which ones, you're going to, ask for help, or at least, ask for clarification on certain things, depending what it is. But, I would like to think that most guys like just to let the game, happen the way it is and go from there.
Frank, when an official and a coach are in a situation, does an official say things to you or to a coach that, generally speaking, will escalate a situation unnecessarily? Are there magic words, or are there things that an official should, that you have found in the heat of the moment will say that tend to take a situation in the wrong direction?
Again, I do not think so, Scott. I think that, as Nolan and Evan just mentioned, is as long as people are communicating to try to get the call right, I don't think there's any way that somebody can be wrong on it. Obviously, there might be the occasion that a coach or an umpire might get a little bit irritated and say something that they don't mean. But again, those are few and far between, and that kind of happens. I personally think that a lot of that would be eliminated if no assistant coaches were allowed, and I think they are not allowed to talk to umpires. I really think that would help a lot, because I've seen many assistant coaches get under umpire's skin, and a lot of times rightfully so. And so I just think if we could just manage it and have the only conversation between the head coach and the umpire, I think that would alleviate a lot of some of the tension that gets involved. But no, I don't hear the umpires, because the umpires are professional 99.9% of the time, and if something's coming out that's gonna get under somebody's skin, it's usually from the coach, to be honest with you.
Nolan, I'd kind of throw this one over the fence to you a little bit. Have you had, an umpire say something to you, even when you were playing, that just felt like it wasn't something that needed to be said?
No, I honestly, Frank really nailed that. If assistant coaches didn't say anything in any game that I've coached or played, or I've seen the assistant coach, because they just kind of keep piecing away at it, and they keep chipping away until it really hits a nerve with the umpire. And a lot of time the head coaches will go and have conversations and talk with them, but it's those assistants that keep buzzing the ear of the umpire, and all of a sudden they look over and they see who it is, and they're like, why is that guy talking to me? The less that assistant coaches are talking, and it kind of steers away from who's communicating, and it causes a little bit of confusion. And if any assistant coach is getting thrown out of the game, that's not a good look. But no, when I was playing, especially, when I was playing first, I would introduce myself to the umpire, and I would talk throughout the entire game. That's if I started. Typically, I'd go into like the 7th inning. But I would just talk with them and introduce myself, and it'd be a fluid conversation. Now, I think anytime that a coach is saying anything, it's when they mention something about ego. Or if I've heard this one a lot, where they say this game's not about you, which it kind of comes out of nowhere, and that's just the coach getting upset. That's when I see it becomes an issue.
Lauren, I'd ask, moving this to a kind of a different topic for the moment, athletics as an extension of the classroom. We have a lot of conversations with our officials where we're trying to decide, what something that may have been said or done crosses a line at the prep level that's really quite acceptable at other levels. Athletics as an extension of the classroom, is that a philosophy that you as an athletic director encourage in the coaching staffs to take with them to the field?
Absolutely. I think one of the main things that I preach to all our coaches is teaching the kids life skills. So communication is a huge part of that. Problem solving, not everything's going to go your way in life. And so just learning how to deal with the things that you don't agree with and handling them properly. Obviously, if they don't understand what they did wrong, I would hope that the official would explain to them. Whether it was a close play and maybe from the official's perspective, they didn't see them get the tag down in time. Whatever the case is, I think it's just important that the players are constantly learning, and a way for them to bridge that is just learning how to communicate with an official. I'm not sure, like I know in basketball, anytime one of my players just asks, like, what did I do wrong? The officials are pretty respectfully tell him what they did wrong. And I think that's just important, not only from a coach's perspective, teaching the kids how to communicate respectfully to the umpires, but then also the umpires kind of teaching the kids what they did wrong. Because as you know, there's varying levels of skill level across baseball and then across the games that you're going to umpire. And so it's just constantly teaching basic skills.
So along the same lines, throwing this to Amanda, what are the things that you think you might like to see us maintain as officials and how we approach things, or maybe even change to help promote that idea?
Exactly what Lauren was alluding to. It's that moment when you see that official take a moment to kind of teach and teach that kid why that call was made and what they could do differently, and make sure that they're understanding the rule. Those are the teachable moments. Those are what we want to see from our coaches to our players. But when you can see it on the field, when it happens with officials, it transforms and transcends across every player and every parent who's there watching, that shows a level of care and concern about growing and respecting the game. And it's literally something that can change the entire like the climate of that game. When you see that happen, it can be a really edgy moment sometimes, and then you can just see the body language between a player and an official, or a player and a coach, and it kind of puts everyone else at ease. I'm not certain I actually answered your question like spot on there, Scott, but I think that's just kind of one of the most important things in building the relationship and the respect between who's governing and running the game and those who are playing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question, and we struggle with it, in a teaching environment. Maybe I'd put that out, Frank, maybe, give you a shot at this. We had talked earlier today, actually, along these lines about words that would get said at a certain level of an athletic contest, but you come back to the prep level and maybe we're not as tolerant of that. And I know that, probably as officials, we have different levels of tolerance. And I think one of the things I'm looking for from you guys is to help identify how you as teachers and athletic administration, where do you see us fitting into that in terms of drawing the line? Is it really something where we really truly extend the standards of the classroom to the baseball field or the softball field or the basketball court?
Yeah, well, please don't get this wrong. I find it a little bit concerning when umpires try to teach the players what a balk is on the mound, or how you should catch a ball as a catcher. So I think you need to distinguish that. But there's so many, again, teachable moments where these umpires that have all this energy and this enthusiasm for baseball can share that with our players. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing, because we have young men. We're not Division I players. We're not junior college players who are, a little chip on their shoulder. There's a lot of talking going on at the junior college level with umpires, unfortunately. And it's a little bit out of control, but I think most of the high school coaches have most of their teams under control. But again, I think that the teaching moments can be kind of in a casual conversation with the players, as Amanda says, and you may be able to see it from the sidelines, but I'm sure the player really appreciates it, those type of conversations where they're interacting, Nolan at first base, or a shortstop and umpire when he's behind the pitcher's mound. So I think those are really, really important. And again, it's the umpires do a really good job. And as you watch TV and you go to our games and you go to Division I games, you really realize how good umpires are. I mean, they are good, and they're making a lot of calls in the day. And Evan mentioned it earlier. It's just, you can't argue every call. The coach at Stanford, Mark Marquis, he just never argued a call. And the bottom line is, what I found out, and I'm on this call right now, and I'm feeling kind of old because I went to school with Robert Fusco, who's on this thing. I coached Evan. I coached Billy Dillon. I played golf with Flashman's dad. I played golf with Mr. Escalera, an umpire. So I got a lot of contacts here, but it's just that you see the way that this is going now, and I think these umpires are doing a great job, and you're doing a great job, Scott, directing them. And that's happening by being on this call. I mean, I was fired up to get on this call. I haven't been on a call in a long time. I've been locked up, but to see everybody trying to learn and get better, that's what education and the teaching is all about.
So Amanda had mentioned, trying to get back to more officials interacting with players. And I'd like to touch on that a little bit, because we do run into situations, quite frankly, where not every head coach is on board with that. And Evan or Nolan, I did not put this on the, prep you for a question like this, but do you have any concerns about umpires interacting with your players, particularly when there's a conversation about conduct or a rule, and you might not even necessarily be a part of the conversation. Does that get you on edge, or is that something that you find acceptable and or even desirable? I'll give that to Nolan first.
Sure, Dave. I'm already talking. So anytime that if my players are having an issue with conduct or the rules, I'm totally fine with them talking about and just say, hey, explaining it. I'd love to be in there and help maybe guide the conversation with the players. But if we're at the situation that umpire has to discuss conduct with one of our players, I'm probably going to go ahead and bench that player. We say a lot of times that the umpire's job is not desirable for us, and obviously we're playing and it's a tough job, and so we're going to let them do that, and my job as a coach is to talk to them, and the player's job is to play. So I kind of agree with Frank. Sometimes it's a fine line. If players are discussing a lot with the umpire, there can be too much where the player feels like they're okay to say, oh no, I tagged him, you're wrong. And anytime a player's telling an umpire they're wrong, we're too far in my opinion. So that's my job as a coach. I'm going to be talking to the umpire, and I'll rarely say you're wrong. But yeah, it doesn't get me too much on edge. I just think there could be a fine line with it.
Yeah, I mean, I would piggyback on what Frank said earlier. Is that I think it's on a varsity level, certain situations, as far as defining what a balk is and those type of things. I mean, those things can be done after the call. I think a lot of those types of opportunities are done, in the frosh soft or JV level. And I think that's a challenge with that being more developmental is, the fact I think when I was playing, you saw the same faces and there was a lot of experience or opportunity at those lower levels before umpires became, varsity level officials. And I'm sure that's one of the number one challenges with this group and any group, any sport, just finding those quality officials and bringing them up, at the necessary times. And I think now, whereas you saw those interactions, like Amanda has alluded to multiple times tonight, their brain, the game is moving so quickly for them because of their lack of experience. A lot of times those moments don't happen because, they don't have that, wherewithal to make those connections and they're just trying to get through the call instead of, explaining or sometimes, like you see in other sports, explaining what a travel is and just letting things go sometimes for the sake of the game. If the game's out of hand and one team's up by a bunch, just to have those conversations with both coaches and try to, develop, both teams as the game's going on. I mean, I feel like, that's a good thing to have and appreciated, but sometimes those moments don't happen as much as we want them to because of, the shortages and other factors.
Thanks. Lauren, maybe I'll push this one out to you first. Then maybe Amanda, maybe you can follow up. What are the things that come to you, especially if you didn't see them or hear them, in person, that would drive you to reach out to myself as the assigner, or Tom Fitzpatrick as the president? What is the kind of incident that would cause you enough concern that you would reach out to somebody in our unit and say, I think we need to take a closer look at this?
I think for me, I like to go to the baseball games myself just to see what's going on, not just listen to my coach complain about umpires sometimes, because I think sometimes complaints come in the heat of the moment or right after a game, whether a call didn't go their way or not. So for me, actually getting out there and watching. But the only thing I would really address is anytime an umpire is unprofessional in any way, shape, or form, is when I would address yourself, probably, Scott. And mainly because a lot of times coaches are complaining about judgmental calls, and I don't think those are things that are warranted a complaint about an umpire. Because I don't feel like we can complain about judgment calls, but I do feel like we can complain about anytime an umpire is unprofessional in whatever way or situation that occurred.
And just before we throw it over the fence to Amanda, what would be an example or two of something that would be unprofessional at a level that you need to escalate?
So a couple of things is just the way an umpire handles himself or herself. I like to introduce myself at some point to the umpire during the game, just so they're aware that there is an administrator there to support them. But anytime an umpire is late, I feel like when you're late, you should kind of hustle it up and not just take your time. Getting to the game, sorry.
What do you?
I'll swoop in and save you here, Lauren. So I think that the only other thing that I would add is, anytime they're just being inappropriate with either a player or a fan, I think that is something that's super out of the ordinary, right? It doesn't fit the bill of what's being asked, and that I would, as a host AD, that would warrant a phone call, whether it was someone from the Brentwood community or our guests. So that goes both ways. And I think that's where it's really important. It's, how are we treating each other as adults, as how are we treating the kids? I can't think of a time in recent years where I have felt that, wow, this has been something that's been really inappropriate. But I have, also sat at a volleyball table many, many times, and, just heard off comments that just, have no place in the athletic world between, umpires and students. And I will say something to that umpire in that moment. But that's because I happen to hear it. So I think that, I'm thankful that those don't happen often, but of course they can.
Nolan, by the book an official or seat of his or her pants official?
By the book.
You want to go by the book?
Absolutely.
Nolan? Yeah. I'm sorry, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, I think by the book, for lack of a definition, but again, I think it's all about the experience and having our guys, deal with whatever goes on and still try to perform. But I think by the book lends itself to being more black and white and has those boundaries that can be sustained during the course of a game.
Frank?
I think basically by the book, but there is that human element where the official is going to have a feel for how the game is going. And, hey, is it a tight game? Is it a game that's tense and are kids coming down the dugout? Are you going to control that? Because you have to be in the dugout, say one person on deck, whatever it may be. I think that's pretty important to prevent any situations from escalating. So therefore, I think if you go by the book, you're probably a lot safer.
And so I would ask the question, Evan, Nolan, because this continues to be, kind of a challenging conversation, for officials to have at every level. Do you balk, home the winning run in the bottom of the seventh inning? That's, it would definitely be something that fall into by the book. Or do you feel that there might be moments where our ability to be a little bit more discretionary in how we apply a rule would be appropriate? How do you land on that?
Well, I guess I didn't know we were going to go as far as blocking home the winning run, but I think, if it's egregious, that the consistency is going to be key, because if I were the coach on the other side, I might be looking at that and say, hey, that was flat out. And at some point, if it's that egregious, then yes. But if it's a little something, you know, a little twitch or a little hand movement, like, you know, at the high school level, that's okay. At the college level, that's your job. You know, I don't get paid whether I win or lose. I get paid because of my coaching philosophy and, you know, the environment and the culture that we try to build. So at the high school level, I think a little bit, those very, very crucial moments can slide, but the more consistent, yeah, I kind of stand with by the book.
Amanda, you've obviously been on the field, and you've probably, you know, my experience has been softball tends to be a lot more adherent to the book, you know, on a game in, game out basis than we've seen our baseball officials. How's that been for you as a head coach on a softball field?
I agree. I think by the book's the way to go. It's gonna all even out. 50% of the time it's gonna go your way, and 50% of the time it's not. But that's what's fair, and that's why there is a rule book, and that's why you only ever argue and go out to the mound and talk to an official about rules and interpretation of rules. Otherwise, it's just opinion based, and we're not playing games. Kids aren't playing games to have people give their best opinion. So I think that by the rules, the best way to go, because it's at the end of the day, the easiest one to explain.
All right. Let me check real quick to see if any questions came in through the chat, because those are the bulk, and we've only got a few minutes left. I don't see that anybody's added anything.
You know, Scott,
Yep.
I've been thinking about this in the beginning, but there are talking about building credibility with umpires. Sorry if there is a question. I saw Harry Hampton probably weeks after a game where I was asking him for a call to change, and I should have just asked the other umpire for help. But he came up to me and had a conversation with me 3 weeks later. I mean, it may have been like months later, but he was really generous and an incredible guy. And we had a fantastic conversation, and being able to leave things behind that are bad and move on, but also, hey, address some things that happened in the past, and then, hey, let's just keep moving forward. That's another thing that I've just been thinking about to build some credibility. So I really appreciate that as well.
Well, I was on the field when that call was made. And I do remember that incident. I was actually going to stay completely away from it, but that's okay. That was actually a great moment for me. That's the first time I've been on the field with you, and you know, it was actually the way you handled it was actually very good to see, and it was a good moment for you know, for Harry and myself. I mean, I think Harry's on the call. You know, we were actually able to turn that into a pretty positive overall experience. So that one was a good one. Any closing comments, Nolan?
No, I really, again, I appreciate to be on this call. I'm honored with all the ADs. I think I might be one of the only current coaches. I'm very honored to be out here, and especially talking with a lot of the umpires. And again, as we're discussing, being able to continue to build these relationships. I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, Harry, thanks for the little picture you put in there. Can't help you, man. Frank, you have any closing comments?
Well, I'd just like to say best of luck this year, if we have a year, hopefully. And again, I just think that the enthusiasm and the hustle and the movement on the field, you can't go wrong. And I think it's just really important to understand that we're dealing with young ladies and young men that are trying to learn the game, and these great people who are putting their time into umpiring to officiate the games for us. We appreciate it, and it doesn't seem like it all the time maybe to you guys, but and women, but we do. And I think overall you guys do a great job, and thank you very much, and best of luck. And Scott, thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. Lauren, any closing comments?
No, I just think that some of the coaches may have a different attitude this year just because they'll be a little more appreciative and grateful to get a season in. So hopefully there's less controversial calls going on or confrontations. Hopefully the communication is both respectful towards umpires, coaches, and players.
Evan?
You know, I appreciate inviting me to this panel, and you know, like everyone said, you know, issues are few and far between, and lastly, I just like to apologize to everyone that you know, I've had a run-in with, you know, trying to repent for my sins here one at a time.
We don't have enough time for that, Evan. Amanda?
I just want to say how much I appreciate all of you for doing this. I know it's can't be your full-time job. It's got to be a side gig, a hobby, something that you're passionate about. I know the longer we do things, the longer we lose sight as to why we do them. So sometimes terrible things like pandemics can help reset everything for everyone. And maybe we will all remember why we do what we do, and have a little bit more fun with it too. So I just want to thank you all for taking the beatings that unfortunately sometimes you do in the jobs that you do. You drive in traffic to show up and put on a bunch of stuff and stand in the dirt and sweat and the heat, and have parents in your ear. So just know that we're all, as athletic directors, passionate about what we do, and we try to always make it the best environment for you. And when you see that it's not, you know, open up those lines of communication with us as well, and make sure that, you know, if you see something, please let us know so we can make it better for you, because we want to make it the best experience, obviously, for the kids, and we can only do that when we're all facing the same direction. So I appreciate you guys all offering me this opportunity to represent Brentwood and be here today. And just let's make sure whoever's on the Brentwood Windward game, we get those calls right, huh?
Well, no promises. Tom, do you have any last comments for the panel before we, because we're just about at the hour?
No, just I want to again just thank you guys, and you know, I wanted the officials to hear this. I mean, you know, these guys appreciate all of what we do, and I think Frank said it or someone said it there. You know, they're excited to see. I mean, how can you not appreciate guys and gals who are working on their craft? So just like you coaches go to, you know, classes, or you study up in your craft, you know, this is more than just a hobby to us. We get paid like it's a hobby, but it is something that, you know, we do spend time and effort and brushing up on. You know, we don't just show up on March 1st and put on the gear and call balls and strike safes and outs. So I just wanted you guys to know that, and I appreciate that you guys appreciate that, and have spent, you know, a good part of your evenings with us tonight.